Welcome to the Wolf Connection Podcast. I'm your host, John Calfa. Our friend Ashley Avis is back again. It was 2 weeks, and you're back with your crew doing a bunch of stuff. We have so much to talk about. Who would have thought that 2 weeks was a lifetime of things that have happened so far? So just give everybody an update, because that's really what this is, where you have been, because you went to Daniel with the rally. We're talking about a bunch of stuff. So just give everybody out there what's going on with you and the team and everything that's happening so far.
I can't believe it's been only 2 weeks. So much has unfolded since we visited you guys. And I told you earlier on when we first came up here, which was an unbelievable experience on the road headed toward your gates. I turned to my husband and producing partner, Ed, and I said, I think we're going to do it again, because it feels like, and we've talked about this potentially happening, it feels like there might be another documentary to do, because this story with wolves is unfolding so quickly. And, you know, when things flow like water, you kind of have to follow the river. And so the day after we came up and visited you guys 2 weeks ago, we flew to Bozeman the next morning, went into Yellowstone, met some amazing people. We met with Doug Smith, who is the biologist in Yellowstone, was there for the wolf reintroduction. We met with Norm Bishop, who was Doug's boss at the time of the introduction in 95 and instrumental, obviously, in bringing the wolves back. We met with Dan Stoller, who's currently in Yellowstone, Mike Phillips, just a lot of amazing people that were really informative for the story of American Wolf, which we've discussed. We're turning that into a feature-length film. But I think there is very much a complementary documentary to follow the journey of the making of American Wolf, similar to what we did with our wild horse documentary, Wild Beauty. So I think that that's what's unfolding right now.
Why do you think that's so important? Because some people will say it's added work, or it may just complicate the story. Why do you feel it's so necessary? Because of the wolf issue, and you and I talked about this the podcast before. Wolves are so political. There is so much to be said. Why now? Why on top of American Wolf?
It feels like, I don't know if I said this last time, but I mean it sincerely. It feels like the wild horses have called us to the wolves, and in trying to get Wild Beauty, our wild horse stock, on the radar of different people, it was because of our scrappy independent documentary that we made for 5 years that we got on the radar of Appian Way. And that's how American Wolf started unfolding, because there are so many parallels between what wild horses face and what wolves are facing. And the minute I read American Wolf, it was one of those projects where I just thought, please, there's no way this can't happen, please. And then I after meeting with the wonderful producers at Appian Way, I ended up meeting with the author, Nate Blakesley, and we just hit it off right away. And what was crazy, and going back a little bit, 2 steps, what led us to Wild Horses was me writing and directing Black Beauty, and being tasked with modernizing that story. When I first met with that original producer in 2017, it was a general meeting, and we just talked about what inspired us to go into film. And the reason Black Beauty happened was because I mentioned one of the most beautiful films in the world to me is The Black Stallion, that Carol Ballard directed. And this beautiful scene on the beach with Alec and the Black, and this mystical connection that humans and animals can have, horses, wolves. And on that first call with Nate Blakesley, I was discussing how I wanted to approach American Wolf. Just like the book, I want to delve into her world, and she's one of the 3 central characters. It's really Rick, Lori, and her, and then, of course, Doug Smith. But as I was describing wanting to go into Yellowstone and making it harder, I tend to make it harder for everything because it's just often more interesting. I said I really want to go into Yellowstone, or perhaps a private area where there might be real wolves. I don't want to lean on CG. I don't think people connect with CG. I don't think it's come far enough. The eyes throw you. And American Wolf is about her story and connecting with her and being devastated at the end. And Nate loved that approach. And he mentioned the scene in The Black Stallion on that call, the exact same scene that ended up leading to Black Beauty. And I'm sitting on the other end of the Zoom, quiet, thinking, oh my gosh, and it was just one of those moments where it just felt destined. And he said yes, because he was a big part of the decision-making process for who would write and direct the film.
That's incredible. It's so amazing. Let's talk about what has happened in these last 2, because really this is on the heels of Hogs for Hope, which was the rally that happened in Daniel, Wyoming for that wolf. Jonas Black, all these wonderful folks, Wolves of the Rockies, Wyoming Wildlife Advocates. You were there on the ground. They raised over $130,000 for legislation, for reform. What was it like as we talk about these human connections to wildlife to have that experience on the ground with these folks who've been fighting this fight for such a long time?
I loved meeting everybody. It was such a positive experience, which was so refreshing being in the wildlife space, advocacy space, just seeing people come together, obviously on one side. What was devastating was being with you guys just a week prior and then going into Yellowstone and seeing all of the resplendent beauty that we have to protect, and then driving down there. And even 30 minutes away, we stopped for gas, and I could just feel everyone was nervous about what was about to occur, and Jonas and the caravan driving in. But it's so sad that, and this isn't a reflection by any means on everybody in Daniel. There were residents that came out and followed us, and I spoke to a couple of them. They were disgusted with what Cody did. And it was very clear. One woman spoke to us and we did an interview. She said a lot of people are scared to come out against him because if they stand with wolves, even if they disagree with what he did, they're alienating some of their community. And that was just, that was heartbreaking. And driving up to that rally, the fact that you might know this, I didn't see it, but they killed a coyote and strapped tape around its mouth and killed it and left it in front of, I believe, the sign of Daniel. And a few people that got there ahead of us, ahead of the caravan, they removed him or her. And the fact that this town, that's not right, but that either Cody Daniels or I don't know who did it, but the fact that they would double down is just it exemplifies everything that is wrong with that mentality and how dangerous that mentality is. Because if you're willing to do that to a living creature, what other cog is missing in your brain? And I think that somebody like Daniel should be looked at psychologically, because from what we were told by the locals, this was not a first offense with that poor wolf pup. So I hope that her death won't be in vain and people will latch onto this, and this will start a movement, a much needed movement, that Wyoming, Montana, and Idaho do not stand by themselves. They're part of this country, and they've got to stop acting like it's the wild, wild west. This has to change.
Yeah. And Cody Roberts, Cody Roberts, yeah. It's just, and this is what we're talking about today, right? Because you're here again, you're doing a bunch of filming, which you guys are connecting. It's, where do you feel like this human connection is being lost? Because we had, you interviewed me for part of what you're doing. You guys are in here again. We got here at first light, basically,
yeah,
which was wild.
So
and
pretty.
Just to see these wolves and wolf dogs that we have and the way that they interact with us, we allow them to be in our space. Leo was a unbelievable wolf on camera. Nukumi also. It's just, when you see these things, you see how we can coexist in such a tiny space and not have any sort of friction, and we're trying to accomplish the same thing, whether they know it or not. Why are we losing that out in these wild places? Why are we losing this out in the West where we're, just trying to all coexist?
Well, I wonder, just for people in general and the direction that the world is going, we're so internal these days, and to come out here and to see big skies and to see nature as far as your eyes can take in, and to be able to interact with wolves. I think people need to get out into nature more. And there was this miraculous thing that happened when we were out on the road on and off for 5 years looking for wild horses. You spend a day or two away from a city, and it's like something unlocks in your spirit. You just feel different. You feel the sense of being alive. And Thoreau has that beautiful quote, "We need the tonic of wildness." And I think that people, if there's a message to people, get out and get into the wild, whether it's wolves, it's horses, it's going to Yellowstone or Yosemite. There is something I think that unlocks in our spirit that perhaps is ancient or primal. And just like the relationship with the wolf, so many people think of wolves as scary. We've talked about the mythology, the big bad wolf.
Right.
Stepping into their habitat, there is nothing you feel the sense of kinship with them. And it feels like a sense of knowing between you. If you're still and your hearts are pure, if that makes sense, I know it does. But for the other side of the antiquated thinking, for somebody like Cody Daniels, just as an example, we heard that he's multi-generational. I think it's education. I think it's the way parents teach you, and getting out of that mentality. I just wonder if I don't know. I would love to sit across from Cody Daniels, and if he ever hears this, there's a challenge. I'd love to sit across from him and talk to him and understand why, from his perspective, he thinks that that's okay. I would love to speak with him.
Yeah. I mean, if we put that out there, I think, hopefully, maybe that'll come down the pike at some point, and have Cody Roberts and, people of that town that obviously there's always going to be a divide. And that's why wolves are so political, right? We always have this, it's almost like it's this dividing line through the country that we've seen. And Stephen and I have talked about this at length on the podcast about why that is and what brings those things there. Obviously, you guys went to the rally, and out of the rally, though, is born something even bigger, which I don't know if that was, your doing or was a collective, but you've posted a lot on your social media, as well as the Wild Beauty Foundation, about this rally and this cry for the wild and this rally for wolves that's coming in DC actually at the end of this month. Just go into that of what's happening there, because that is a huge step forward where, you saw I think it was the 4 or 5 of you locked in arms, you, Kim, Kristen, and Jonas. Just explain how that was born out and why DC, why now, why the rally, and what is it, what's it going to entail?
I think there's this amazing ripple effect happening between a lot of very good people. And because of the trip we just took to Yellowstone, and through other friends and contacts, I ended up getting connected to all of these incredible people, including Kim, and through her, Kristen. And when we were talking about the rally, we were supposed to be in Montana at the time. And I looked at my husband and I said, well, we gotta drive 6 hours tomorrow morning and go to this thing. And also, can you find a crew to film it starting at, 6 a.m.? And my amazing Ed figured that out. But in talking to Kim a few days before the rally, the last stop was supposed to be Daniel. And we just came from DC, and we planned that event for the horses for 8 months. And we learned so much. And so we were chatting and just, why don't we take this on the road to DC? Would Jonas be willing? Could that be the final stop? And so she talked to him and he said yes. And so it's very much, it's an everyone's invited event. I don't think, people talk about in the horse world, which I've been so involved in. I'm sure it's the same with wolves. Like, there's no one person that's going to solve this. It's a pack. It's a team effort.
Yeah.
It's every organization is doing something different. And that's the spirit of what we want to bring to DC. Everyone's invited. Everyone has a seat at the table. It's going to take all of us. And on June 26th, let's spill as many people into the House as possible. And I know the Senate's on recess, but their staffers will be there. Everybody should be spilling into DC and making that a day for the wolves, and using that poor wolf pup who Jonas has named Hope as a symbol of what's wrong. And that's what we hope to bring to DC for a larger effort. I think we've been discussing perhaps a new bill that needs to be introduced.
Yeah, and like you said, it's a collective effort, and we talked about this the last visit and today as you guys have been on site, just really about how we as a species, we've co-evolved together with all, and it's not just wolves, it's all these other species that are around, the bison and the elk and the wolves and the coyotes and the mountain lions and the bears. And so we've lived throughout our history at some point, obviously, as we go back in time, a little bit more primitive, but we were there and we survived to a point. So there's a way to get back to that. And it's how do we get back to that point? And obviously it's, through communication, it's through collectiveness, it's through, again, putting on events such as these and a rally cry in a way that, like you said, is peaceful, progressive, and also making change, because that's the only way this stuff is going to happen. For you guys, the next step, as we were talking, you guys are headed on the road again, obviously, because you talked about Yellowstone, and obviously you're in the full swing, and it's only been 2 weeks. What are the next steps now for American Wolf? And because you went to Yellowstone already a little bit, you saw Doug, you saw Dan, as you were saying before. What are those next steps now to continue to bring this story to fruition as you guys are on that journey?
So we've been developing the story for almost a year, for the pitch, for the way that we're going to approach the film, pitching the different studios. And so I can't wait to be able to tell you who actually is our studio partner. It's so exciting. It should be in a couple of weeks. But as I told you, Leonardo DiCaprio is producing. But right now, I really wanted to go to Yellowstone to color in some of the textures that maybe weren't in the book version that I need for the film. I love writing the way people speak. I really study intonation and speech patterns and nuances and idiosyncrasies. And I think I told you last time, Rick McIntyre loves classic rock, and he was attributing different songs to different wolves, and that became part of the pitch because I met him last fall and he was doing that. So I wanted to go in, and I took a journal full of notes already, just hearing people's different stories, their perspectives on the reintroduction. I didn't realize children were standing at the gate, a line of kids when wolves were introduced in 95, and and that was with Norm Bishop. And I got to see he's, going through different books and showing me photos. And those are the moments, and it is the extra work, but that's just the way you're supposed to approach a project like this.
Totally.
And so symbolically, I wrote the first couple of words for the screenplay while we were there, because I wanted to start it with the spirit of 06. But I'll probably spend the next 2 months continuing to I've got a stack of books to read and talking to a few more people. And then I'll start writing in earnest probably in August, and we'll have a draft by the end of the year. And then our plan we've discussed right now is, and everything often changes with filming schedules, but we've discussed an end of 2025 production start. So we'll see. We're hopeful that could happen.
That's incredible. That's unreal. So for the action items, because as we wrap this, what are the action items that people, because they're going to want to know about DC, they're going to want to keep up with American Wolf. So give them, I guess, the DC stuff first. So I know is it hashtag cry for the wild?
Cry for the wild.
Cry for the wild. And then obviously those of you that know Ashley, follow her on her Instagram, follow Wild Beauty Foundation. They've obviously been promoting a lot of this stuff. What other sources so that anybody who's watching this can get involved, knows the next steps of not only the rally, but the legislation and the routes that those things are taking?
Absolutely. So the event in DC, we're calling a Cry for the Wild, hashtag Cry for the Wild. And it's time for intentional torture and killing to stop. We can't be doing this. Our country should be ashamed. So it's time to stop that. And anybody, I know not everybody can physically join us in DC, but if you can, please come out. Book your plane tickets and your hotel rooms right now for June 26th. We'll be coming in June 25th and staying through the 27th to add in an extra lobbying day right after this rally. So there will be a rally in the morning, and then we're going to disclose some of the other potential events in the next couple of days. And you can find that information on the Wild Beauty Foundation. You can check it out. Wolves for the Rockies will be posting it. Wyoming Wildlife Advocates will be posting it. Jonas Black will be posting it. And there will be, we'll be giving everybody a blueprint, hopefully by the end of this week. So just hang tight and stay tuned on those channels.
I love it. No, thank you so much for all the work that you're doing, all the advocacy, everything that's happening here with us. And this partnership is it's only begun.
I agree.
It's only just begun.
And what you guys are doing it's just incredible. And I want to see, I know you were talking about 60 wolves and being able to expand. And I just hope you're an hour outside of Los Angeles. I hope that people can, I didn't realize that when we were first talking. I thought maybe you guys were 3 hours away. You're an hour away from LA. Everybody should come up here and get to experience this and then talk about it. That's the problem with this issue. People need to know the truth behind it and the beauty of the wolves and cut through this disinformation BS and understand what we need to protect and the beauty we need to protect. And they should also donate to you guys because you're doing amazing work.
I appreciate that. Yeah. No, and anybody who wants to follow anything that we do, just go to wolfconnection.org. Follow Stephen and I on the podcast, Instagram. I mean, we post so much stuff all the time. But Ashley, thanks for the update. And again, I'm sure we'll be talking to you not in another 2 weeks, but sooner than later, I have a feeling. Thanks so much again for coming on and enlightening everybody with all this awesome information. Really appreciate you.
Thank you.
Totally. House to you all out there. We'll talk to you next time. Bye.